Today I'll be talking about Sierra Leonean and Belgian culture. I'm Maggie Hunt and I'm a nursing major at HCC, and the cultures I chose were Sierra Leonean and Belgian cultures. The reason I chose these cultures is because I lived in Sierra Leone for 2 years. It's a country in West Africa that many people probably know about from movies such as Blood Diamond, but I still believe it's a discrete country because I don't think many people know more than just what they have seen in the movie or anything. And it's also a small country area-wise. I chose Belgium because it's one of my favorite countries to travel to, and it's also a small, unknown country. Sierra Leonean culture. So, Sierra Leone was colonized by the British in the 18th century for a place to put freed slaves. So, Sierra Leone's official language is English. Um, I think that the colonization also affected the religion. So 20% of Sierra Leoneans are Christian, which probably doesn't seem like a lot, but as you can see on the last bullet point, compared to its neighbors, that is a lot. Guinea, which is one of its neighbor countries in West Africa, has almost all almost all of the population is Islam, whereas in Sierra Leone only 40% of the population is Islam and 20% is Christian, which is a much higher number than Guinea. So I think that that also affected their religion a little bit. Um, I think the colonization also affected them because the British tried to do a lot of manufacturing things. They cut down a lot of trees and it really drastically changed the environment. They also were kind of trying to tell tribal chiefs what to do, which is really infiltrating the culture because obviously in a traditional tribe setting, the chief is the one that's supposed to make decisions about his tribe and how to lead his tribe, and the British were trying to tell them how it was going to go. So that was another reason that they decided to strive for independence. Also, because the British wasn't really worried about Sierra Leonean education or job opportunities. They didn't give them equal opportunities to have an education and things like that. So Sierra Leoneans finally achieved independence in 1961 after World War II. There's also still many tribes that are very active in Sierra Leone and still live in a traditional way with a chief in the village, such as the Mende tribe and the Fula tribe. The Mende tribe is one of the most predominant tribes, with 35% of the population being of Mende descent. Um, as I said, Islam is a major religion in Sierra Leone. It is about 40% of the population, but it also has a 20% population of Christian and a 40% population of others, so probably more tribal religions. Belgian culture. So, a big part of Belgian culture is their food. There's many Belgian dishes that are special to their country or that their country is known for, such as mussels and frites. They also have speculoos, which is like it's kind of like a peanut buttery substance, but it's not peanut butter, and has like it's like cookie flavored. They also have Belgian waffles, which I'm sure everybody has heard of. So I believe that food is kind of an art for Belgium. They're very like well known for their food. Belgium is set up into two different cultures. So Belgium has French speakers and Flemish speakers. So the French speakers kind of have their own culture, and the Flemish speakers also have their own culture. Flemish is just like a Dutch dialect. It's basically the same as Dutch, but it has a few different vowels and a little bit different rules. But usually, if someone speaks Dutch and someone speaks Flemish, they can understand each other. Belgium has many festivals that are mostly continuations of folkloric traditions, such as Kattenstoet, which so it's in a town called Ypres. I don't know how to pronounce these, but it's in a town called Ypres, and they used to have a cloth hall because they were big on like wool and other types of fabric. That's what the town did. They used to have a cloth hall, and legend says that they would overpopulate it with cats to eat mice and vermin and stuff like that because they didn't have modern technology to keep their fabric safe. So they had a bunch of cats in there. And then when it would get too overpopulated with cats, then they would have this day where they would throw them off of the tower onto the town square below. So it's kind of morbid. But they still do it today, but not with live cats, of course. They still do the festival, but they throw toy cats from um the tower, so it's not as graphic. So explaining values and worldview. This is Sierra Leone. So one of the main values in Sierra Leone is helping each other out. So Sierra Leone is a very underdeveloped country. 67% of the population live under the poverty line. So it's big to help each other out. If you have a neighbor and they need something, then you're supposed to be giving, but you also expect the same back when you need something. So if that neighbor has something you need, then you would expect that if you've done a favor for them before, they would do it for you. So that's a very important value, especially because of the poverty situation. People don't have all the resources, so it's good to help each other out and share. Another important Sierra Leonean value is presenting yourself well. So, I attached a picture of these women in different fabrics and dress and stuff like that. So that's a big thing. You know, you want to have vibrant fabric that has a lot of print on it and has a lot of bright colors and things like that, because it says a lot about your status and your wealth, and also just how you present yourself to other people is just important to them, and they want to, you know, wear vibrant colors and stuff like that. Um, so the worldview. So I believe that Sierra Leone's worldview is kind of meek. I mean, if you look it up, one of the main things that probably a lot of people know about is the famous movie that I've already said, Blood Diamond. But the movie depicts the war over the diamond trade, which was real, and it caused a lot of distress in the country. A lot of people died, and it was very, it was just really bad for them. So I think that's one thing that a lot of people know. Um, and I also think that, I mean, most recently the country has faced Ebola outbreaks and also an increase in violence towards women. So if you look things like that up, that's also something that appears in the search. So I think the worldview would probably be pretty meek, especially what I just said about the poverty line and stuff like that. People hear that, and um, it probably doesn't seem like the best place. But I do think that people who actually go to Sierra Leone think the culture is extremely rich and the people are very nice and giving and just open to talk to anybody and things like that. So obviously, I myself have lived there, as I said, and I would say that it is very culturally rich. The markets are a place that features artists who carve wooden structures or paint elaborate things on fabric. So the fabric up there, it's the same thing. Like that's like kind of painted on there. Um, well, it's dyed on there with like stencils and things like that. So the market features a lot of things like that. They also have paintings that were painted on fabric, but actual paintings. Sierra Leone is also big on music, and many times they use a djembe to play folklore music and have tribal dance. So I didn't probably pronounce that correctly, but it's just a West African style drum, and they're very popular for like folkloric music, you know, traditional music. All right, explaining values and worldview for Belgium. So their values, one of the very, very main ones is cleanliness. They want to represent the country as a clean place. So oftentimes when you go there, you will see people sweeping the sidewalks. You'll see people cleaning their front porches, like with sponge and water. Like they want the outside as well to look clean. It's not even just about themselves or the inside of their house. They want the outside to look clean. They want people that come there to view it as a clean, nice place. Another value, which is much different than in Sierra Leone, is that women are more independent. So, for instance, in Belgium, it's actually not usual for the woman to take the man's last name. That's actually rare. Usually, women just keep their own last name and they each have their own last name. Sierra Leone, as I just said, has had a recent uptick in violence against women. So obviously I don't really think it's the same. Women in Sierra Leone probably aren't treated equally to men or even more independent or anything. So that's different. Family is also an important value to many Belgians, and they usually stay in the towns they grew up in to create tight-knit extended families. So they usually want to be in living in the same town that their parents live, that their siblings live, and things like that. Their worldview. I think that people view Belgium as a clean and technologically advanced country. Their capital city, Brussels, is a huge hotspot for technology and things like that. But in recent years, there have been political turmoil between the Flemish and French speakers that I spoke about before, the cultural divide with them. Well, there's also been a political divide now, and it's threatened to tear Belgium into two different countries. So they have been talking about separating Belgium into a French-speaking Belgium and then a Flemish-speaking Belgium. And that might change their worldview a little bit to a politically unsound one. Um, but Belgium also has long-standing folkloric traditions, such as the cat and stoat we talked about, and is also rich in art and other historical landmarks, such as castles. So the painting that I attached here, it was painted by Paul Rubens, and um, he was a very famous Baroque style artist, and he mostly depicted religious paintings. So, how I relate, like I said, I lived in Sierra Leone and I have traveled to Belgium multiple times. I believe that Sierra Leonean values actually might reflect mine more than Belgian values. For instance, they are mostly focused on helping each other in times of need and being grateful for what you have because of the poverty and stuff like that. So I think I probably relate mostly to those values, but I also like the Belgian idea that families would remain close knit in the towns they grew up in. Um, I also do agree with the cleanliness value, but they kind of take it to an extreme. I read about how they kind of look down on people who might have overgrown lawns, or things like that, and I don't really necessarily agree with that. Um, Importance of like the cultural aspects. So in the slide before this one, I said I attached the image of the painting by, oh sorry, Peter Paul Rubin. And he was a famous Baroque style artist who mostly painted portraits or religiously themed art. This is very important to Belgium's culture because it gives insight to the art styles and the values at the time of the paintings, and it also gives us insight, obviously, for him specifically, for Peter Paul Rubin, into the predominant religions in Belgium during the Baroque period, since that's mostly what he depicted. Um, and in my cultural slide for Sierra Leonean, well, it wasn't my cultural slide, it was the explaining values and worldview slide. I mentioned all the elaborate art that can be found in the markets. This is important because it's a major source of economy in Sierra Leone. A lot of people work in the markets, and that's how they make their money. So that's extremely important. And I also mentioned the tribal dances and the djembe, which is a traditional West African drum, which is important to keep Sierra Leonean tribal culture alive and active. So my question is, why do you think the two countries differ so vastly, but also remain alike in core values? Both of the countries have very um, familial core values. So that is my question. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it.